There's been many great rock and roll singers over the years. Some have a breathtaking range and could hit almost any note. But it's not just about the notes you can hit, but how you sing them. Today I wanted to take a look at one of my favorite categories of rock singers, those who sing with rasp. Vocal rasp, sometimes called a gravelly or a smoky voice, can be learned as a technique, but I believe the best rock singers have a natural rasp to their voice. For this video, I'll be looking at the top 10 raspy rock and roll singers of all time. So at number 10, we've got Bryan Adams. Bryan Adams is rarely mentioned on these kinds of lists. I think he's underrated as both a singer and a songwriter. Besides his great songwriting, he has a great voice and quite a bit of range. Although his voice isn't near to the raspiest on this list, it does break up quite a bit when he screams. Coming in at number 9 is John Fogerty. John Fogerty has one of the most unique voices in all of rock music. His voice just sounds swampy, even if he was born and raised in California, and it matches the lyrics of his songs so well. It's hard to believe his band, CCR, were only putting out albums for 4 years, considering how many hits they had. And at number 8, we have Bob Seger. Bob Seger is best known for his Heartland rock, but not much is ever paid to his voice, which can best be described as soulful. The mark of a great singer is being able to sound good with a band, but also solo, with just his guitar and his voice. And that's exactly what he does for some of his softer songs. Bob Seger is a great singer who actually put out his first song in 1961. That's pretty crazy to think that he was still out touring just a few years back. And at number 7, we have Kurt Cobain. Nirvana took the rock music scene by storm in the early 90s and almost single-handedly ended glam metal as a genre. Janie Lane of Warrant was apparently driving in Los Angeles when he first heard Smells Like Teen Spirit, and he pulled over his Corvette because he knew that the glam metal scene was over with just that one song. Cobain's growl is unmatched in rock music, and even though he had a short career, he is still considered one of the counterculture icons of the 1990s. So at number 6, we have Peter Criss. This one might be surprising to some, but I think Peter Criss from Kiss is one of the best rock vocalists of all time. And though Peter only sang a few songs per album when he was with the band, his songs remain fan favorites and his rasp is one of the best in the business. If you really want to get a sense of his vocals, listen to Kiss performing Black Diamond on the Midnight Special in 1974. The song Hard Luck Woman is also commonly mistaken for a Rod Stewart song because of Peter's raspy vocals. Number 5 is Brian Johnson. What more is there to say about Brian Johnson, the singer for AC/DC for the last 40 years and the singer on the best-selling rock album of all time? Brian's voice has gotten raspier over time as a result of vocal damage from singing in such a high range for so many years. He's still out there doing it at 75 years old and shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. Number 4 is Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison of The Doors was primarily known for his stage presence and looks, but his voice deserves recognition as well. He was a natural baritone, but his screaming could easily reach into a tenor range. Most of his distortion was the result of belting, and you can see that on those first few Doors albums. It's important to note, though, that later in his career he preferred to sing with a much deeper and mature tone. And at number 3, we have Janis Joplin, the queen of rock and roll herself. Janis Joplin is famous for her smoky voice, which has been copied by many female rock singers over the years, but never recreated. It's unclear if her rasp was natural or if it came from smoking and drinking, which she started at the age of 14. Regardless, her vocals are iconic in rock music, and most would call her the best female rock vocalist of all time. At number 2, we have Axl Rose. Axl Rose is one of the best rock vocalists of all time and one of the most distinct vocalists of all time in any genre of music. It's impossible to mistake his raspy whine when you hear any Guns N' Roses song. Statistically, Axl Rose has the biggest vocal range for any male rock singer, and this is primarily because he is a baritone who also uses his head voice to sing well out of his natural range. His range does include some incredible low notes as well as screeching highs. Although he has lost much of the rasp that made him famous, he is still out there touring with Guns N' Roses. Now, before we get to our number one raspy rock singer of all time, I wanted to throw out some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the list. These would be Joe Cocker, David Lee Roth from Van Halen, and Stephen Pearcy from Rat. And so, for number one, for the best raspy rock singer of all time, we have Rod Stewart. Rod is the OG rock and roll frontman. His career started in the early 60s, and he's played with everyone from The Faces to Jeff Beck to his own famous solo band. David Lee Roth even went as far as to say that Rod Stewart has the case for being the best rock vocalist of all time. Rod's raspy tenor voice is as iconic as in rock music as any. And even though he does get flack for selling out later in his career, his early rock albums are untouched in my opinion. Without Rod Stewart, I'm not sure rock music would be at where it is today. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think about my selections. Is there anyone I missed? Is Rod Stewart really the best raspy rock vocalist of all time? Or is there someone else that you had in mind for that top spot? See you all next time.